So we're sitting here, we are a turnkey real estate team. We're sitting here with Kevin Krejsa today from Farmers Insurance, and just gonna go over some questions.
So Kevin, why did you decide to get into insurance?
People have been my business my entire life. I used to own and operate restaurants, so I serve people for a living. I thought, what better way could I continue that with a career in insurance where I get to help people on a daily basis? Not only am I helping them, saving money, producing better coverage for them, but I'm the person they call when they feel at their lowest and most vulnerable. So it's a great joy of mine to be able to help people through those situations.
Yeah, absolutely, that's awesome.
What makes your agency different than others out there?
The way we look at insurance here at Farmers, and specifically at the Kevin Krejsa agency, is holistically. We don't take a look at your auto insurance and say, all right, we're trying to drive your price down and not worried about coverage. We're not looking at your homeowners individually. We bundle those, and then on top of that, 99.9% of the time, we offer you an umbrella policy, which encompasses your auto, your home, if you have any toys, if you have any separate properties outside of your primary residence. And what that does is increases your liability limits by at least $1 million. So you're covered in every way, shape, or form, whether you're driving to work, you're going fishing on your boat, you're having friends up to the cabin. So what we do here at our agency is we look at people and families as a whole rather than individual policies and how can we drive prices down consistently. Now, one thing I will say, we're not the cheapest policy out there, but we were never designed to be the cheapest policy out there. What we offer is the right coverage at the right price. We provide a value that very few other companies are able to provide.
What is the benefits of bundling then? Because I know it's kind of like hard to see, that big price when you bundle, but like, are you actually saving a lot when you do that, or?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So first and foremost, when you bundle an auto and a homeowner's or renter's policy, it's 20% off on both.
Okay.
Immediately. Every time you add an additional policy, there's a discount applied across the board.
Okay. Yeah, because it's kind of scary seeing that number, but it's like, it's worth it because realistically, you need renter's insurance or you need homeowner's insurance. You might as well bundle it with the same company and save yourself some money.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we like to talk about here at our agency is, price is nothing you should be scared of. We should talk about price very transparently when we do, but I also want you to think about it in terms of value. So you spend an additional $10 a month on your insurance. In some cases, that offers you double the coverage. So you have to look at the short-term squeeze, as I sometimes call it, right? An extra $10 a month isn't always feasible for everyone, but on the back end, you're talking about a significant change in what you would pay out of pocket should something happen.
Right.
And then I go into explaining, hey, did you know that the government can come in and garnish your wages up to 25% if you have to pay a debt based on an automobile or a homeowner's liability claim? They can take your wedding ring, they can take your personal property, they can take your bank accounts, your investment accounts.
Yeah.
So I ask people, how long would it take you to pay off $300,000 in debt?
Yeah, that's crazy.
I mean, it's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, it sounds like you guys are really personable with Farmers Insurance, and you look over everything with people to be informal and not kind of just throwing someone into an insurance policy.
Right, and so one of the things we like to talk about here is what's best for the people we work with. It's not my policy.
Yeah.
You're not buying Kevin's policy, you're not buying Tracy's policy, you're not buying Micah's policy. Brett is buying Brett's policy, right?
Yeah.
You're buying your own individual policy tailored to you, and we work with you to determine what is the best value and need for you currently. Now, not everybody is going to need the maximum amount of insurance all the time, and that's not what I'm here to do.
Yeah.
If you need to start at square one, we start at square one and we work together and we have an open relationship about your life changing and different events and things like that, and then we adjust your insurance appropriately.
Awesome.
I like how you said that too, because I think a lot of people think of insurance as like, oh, it's just another thing I gotta pay for. But if the unexpected happens, this is gonna prepare you for that. And people don't think the unexpected will happen, but it does. And like realistically, you need to be prepared. And God forbid, you know, you lose a loved one or anything, like you do want to have something to back you up if that does happen. And I think people look past it because they think of like, oh, what am I paying monthly or whatever. So it is good to hear that from you, that it is worth it and it's gonna benefit anyone.
Yeah.
You never know what's gonna happen. So
And it's not if,
Yeah.
it's when.
yeah,
And so when it happens, you get to call me. You're not going to be on 1-800 number. You're not going to be dialing
Yeah.
some random person. You're going to be dealing with me, a person you've met before. We've talked.
right.
We've met on either, you know, video chat or you've come into the office. I've come to your home.
Mhm.
And what I get to explain to anybody who's experienced a loss is, hey, we pay you. One of the things you'll look at national commercials and you'll see a lot of the other big name insurance companies, and they all say the same thing. We'll save you a bunch of money. We'll save you a bunch of money. We'll save you a bunch of money. You know what Farmer says? That's why I love it.
What do they say?
We covered that.
Shit, I like that.
We covered that.
Right.
We paid you.
Yeah,
We don't fight on our claims.
exactly.
So one of my favorite stories is there's a little tiny home, little red home. It was all over the news this spring. Just up the road here, there was a 100-year-old oak tree that fell down, split the house in two. And they were a farmer's client. This happened at approximately 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. And they had to get out of the house because there was a gas leak. They went to the neighbors. Well, come to find out, 7 a.m., farmers paid them their loss of use check.
Wow.
So somebody walked up to them at 7 a.m. and said, here, go find accommodations for you and your family to live.
That's so
I
amazing.
literally have goosebumps.
I
from
do
that.
too, because it's like you go through something like that and you're like, oh my gosh, what do I do? And it's just cool that Kevin will literally be there. He's got you.
Yeah.
He's got you covered.
I've
That's
got you.
super important.
Awesome.
Yep. One of the ones I hope I never have to deliver is a life insurance check.
Right.
I haven't yet, but those will always be done in person. We call it love insurance. Some people call it life insurance, whatever you will. We have products that are term, which means they end at 10, 20, and 30 years, or we have whole life products. You probably didn't know this, but you can start a whole life policy on a child at 14 days old.
Wow. I did not know that.
And it
That's
goes,
cool.
you can insure a 14-day-old up until they're 120
Wow.
with our whole life policies.
And that has a return on investment and something like that as well, right?
It does. Right now they're offering a floor of 3.5% interest on any premiums that are invested into that policy in perpetuity. So there's no downside. Number one, you're guaranteed the death benefit of that policy when you pay into it. You get a 3.5% bonus on your premiums that are invested. And then my favorite part of the whole thing, it's tax-free.
Well, yeah, you can't beat
You
that.
can pull up to 70% of the cash value of the policy out at any given time, completely tax-free.
Does that policy start at like a minimum? I mean, if you start investing in it, what if something happened 2 years into it, somebody, you know, the person passed away? What's the payout on something like that? How would that work?
So the payout on that is the death benefit plus the cash value. So
Okay.
let's say you've built over 2 years, you typically don't build a whole lot of cash value. It's more
Sure.
geared towards long term,
Sure.
unless you front load. But
Right.
let's say you invest, call it $5,000 over 2 years,
Right.
right? What you're looking at there is approximately $200 a month, and
Yep.
you have a $100,000 policy. Well,
Okay.
you'd get a tax-free check for $104,000.
Okay. Okay. I always hear Tracy talk about H03 and H05. Can you tell us maybe the difference between those two
Yeah.
items,
Absolutely.
the
So
products?
they're very similar policies in some aspects, and they're very different policies in other aspects. The way that an H03 and an H05 policy are similar is they cover the same thing. They're covering your primary dwelling, so homeowners insurance. They cover the structure, they cover personal property, they cover loss of use, roof, siding, things like that. The major difference between an H03 policy and an H05 policy is what is considered a peril that is acceptable by that policy. And what I mean by peril is fire, storm, hail, things like that. An H03 policy is named. So I believe there are 13 named items that can happen to your home where you're covered. An H05 is open, which means anything can happen and you're covered. There are exclusions. There are exclusions to both an H03 and an H05.
Sure.
So I'll give you an example. Neighbor of a client had kids, had a trampoline in their backyard, and this past spring, the wind picked the trampoline up and blew it into now client's home. That client had one of those internet companies, little lizard guy, whole one side of the house needed to be replaced with siding. And they came out and they said, the wind didn't damage your property, the trampoline did. That's not a covered peril on your policy. We're not paying for your siding.
Okay.
In an H03, that's what happens. They say that the primary cause of the damage is the trampoline. The cause of the trampoline moving is the wind. So they fight to not have to pay people out. In an H05 policy, like Farmers has, they go, okay, give us a bid and here's your check.
Right.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so Farmers is the only one that has the H05, or does everyone offer it, maybe just charges more for it?
There are only a few companies. Farmers is the largest nationally that offers an H05 policy.
Okay.
Most of the other big name companies that you think of when you think of insurance only offer H03 policies.
Okay.
That's really good to know, actually.
Yeah.
And so I always recommend people when they buy a brand new house and they say, hey, I've got somebody who's going to give you insurance, whether it's a realtor, a mortgage broker, or whomever they get referred to, read your policy.
Yeah.
I know it's a lot of paper, but read your policy, specifically exclusions, what's covered in your name perils, things like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So I always read everything.
Yeah.
Or if you trust somebody in the insurance industry,
Right.
ask them.
Exactly.
One of the things I always offer to people is whether you end up with Farmers in our agency or not, my goal is to educate you. I want you to know what you already have, and then if there are gaps that I can help you fill, I'm here to help fill those gaps. And if it doesn't work out, nothing personal.
Yeah, I think it's really important to be able to be connected with your agent and be able to ask those questions instead of I know some bigger companies and they do online stuff, and it's just I want to be able to call Kevin and ask him anything related to my insurance policy, and he'll have the answer for me, and I'll feel confident in it.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
Absolutely.
So if you're looking for a quote out there, you know who to call.
Kevin's our
Farmers,
guy.
763-323-7637. And we'll post the email on there too.
Yep. Awesome. Thank you so much, Kevin. We really appreciate your time today, and we learned a lot actually.
I think we did. Yeah, that was cool to have the insurance side to everything.
Yeah.
So cool. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thanks
Appreciate
so much
your
for
time.
having me.
Yeah.